Hello bookworms, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sydney. Today's video we're going to be chatting about all the books that I read in the month of October. So hey, what's up? How are you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. First and foremost, Caleb was sick all last week and I thought I made it through unscathed, but it got me. It got me. So it might sound like I still feel quite sick, but I actually feel much better. But my brain must still be foggy because I definitely didn't check the battery before I started filming and it's about to die. So before we get into the wrap up, let me thank today's sponsor, which is Babbel. So if you don't know, aside from creating bookish content, I am also a neuro ICU nurse, and working at an inner city hospital, a level 1 trauma center, we get patients from all different cultures and they all speak different languages. Yes, we do have in-person translators and translators over the phone as resources, but it does take quite some time to set them up, and that is why I'm so glad that I found Babbel. Their intuitive lessons have helped me cultivate a basis of knowledge to not only communicate with my patients, but also create genuine connections through real-world conversations about travel, business, relationships, and so much more. Babbel is one of the top language learning apps in the world, with lessons designed by real language teachers. It is scientifically proven to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. They offer a 20-day money-back guarantee, live classes, as well as 2 free classes that are included within your subscription. The app does such a great job at teaching and reviewing lessons, and I want to show you the platform a little bit, and be kind to me because I took French in high school and Spanish is completely new to this brain of mine. So on my home screen, I'm currently on lesson 4 of my newcomer unit to learn Spanish. If I wanted to start a lesson, I can hit start lesson right there. Babbel incorporates many different methods of learning the language, like flashcards, audio, writing, reading, all of the things. So if you didn't hear that, I'm gonna turn it up and then you can hear it again.
Hola. ¿Qué tal?
So this is prompting me to choose which one I believe it is saying. Hola means hello. ¿Qué tal? I'm guessing means what's up. And that's right. Look at me go.
Yo soy Juan.
I know I am Juan. Hasta mañana means see you tomorrow. Continue the lesson. Now it's having me put the parts of the expressions together. So buenas tardes. That means like good afternoon, I believe. Yeah, look at me go.
Buenas tardes.
Hey, mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
This one is listening to the sentences and building it together. So it's incorporating that audio comprehension as well. So,
¿Tú eres Ana?
tú eres Ana. Are you Anna? Let me finish my lesson. Hold on. Fall is the season of learning. Whether you're headed back to school or you just want to learn a new skill, Babbel is the all-in-one tool that you need to start having real-life conversations in a new language. And the deal that I have for you is phenomenal. During Babbel's Black Friday sale, using my link in the description, you'll get 60% off of your subscription. Thank you so much to Babbel for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Let's get back into the wrap-up. Okay, so I read 8 books in October and it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Right off the bat, I'll talk about one that has been on my currently reading shelf for a couple months now, considering this is still the arc of the book, and it is The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. This is quite the chunker. It is deceiving. It's actually like 800, almost 900 pages. It doesn't look like it, but these pages are Bible thin, let me tell you. This is the first book in a new series set in the Darker Shade of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. We get some of our favorite characters from the previous trilogy, as well as a lot of new characters that are so fun and exciting, and they bring so much more to the world. This book truly felt like coming home. I'll be surprised if it's not in my top books of the year. If it's not in my top, it will definitely be in my like most enjoyed of the year at the very least. I loved every single page of this book. V.E. Schwab's writing just keeps getting better and better. It was such an easy 5-star. Next, I read Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. This was my September book club pick actually, which if you didn't know, I run a book club through my Patreon, which is linked down below in the description. We would love to have you join us over there. And this one we read and reviewed together in a live show discussion. It was interesting. The live show was fun, but my reading experience was not the best. This book follows a magical family, sort of. A lot of the women in this family have gifts. Our main character, Flor, is able to predict when someone will die, and she decides to hold a living wake for herself and invites the whole family, obviously. Doesn't tell anyone any information, so everyone is assuming that she's seen her own death, and that's quite possibly what is actually going on, but everyone is putting together this living wake for her, and we're following so many different point of views of different women in the family getting ready for this living wake, going through their own life situations, and it was a good story, but I honestly didn't love it. I like the familial aspect and the generational part of the story, but I genuinely just thought there were too many point of views to keep track of. Therefore, the story got a little bit confusing, a little bit muddy sometimes, and I couldn't actually care too much about any one character because we would switch to another point of view very quickly. it was hard to keep up. I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. If you have read this book and you kind of feel the same way, or you really liked this book, I want to recommend to you, just as a little cute bonus, Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I feel like these two books have very similar vibes and themes, but Black Cake is a 5-star read. Like, it is so good. It's so good, and I want more people to read it. So if you like one, you probably will like the other, or if you wanted something a little bit different from this one, try Black Cake, because I think that you would love it. But okay, next I read The Stranger Upstairs by Lisa M. Matlin. I was a guest host on the book troupe this past month with Gabby and Meg. I'll link that live show down below in the description because it was a lot of fun. We met this past Sunday to discuss everything about this book, and in my cozy fall vlog, I read this book and I said that I left off with it being like a 3.5 or a 4-star, but the longer that it has sat with me since I read this like 3 weeks ago or so, the more I forgot. I had to like basically flip through and reread so much before the live show because it had already left my brain, and upon reflection, I think this is a solid 3-star read for me. There were a lot of elements in it that I did like, but there were also a lot of things that I didn't like. I really didn't like the writing style and did not like the voice that the author was writing the main character in, to say the least. Interesting premise, but the execution could have been a little bit better in my opinion. It's about a main character, Sarah Slade. Her and her husband, who have a failing marriage at the moment, are buying this murder house where someone had been murdered. And her plan is to fix it up and document it on social media to bolster her numbers, but the house doesn't want to be renovated. Anytime that she renovates like the kitchen or any portion of the house, in the morning it is all like undone again. Along with the small town energy of the neighborhood, no one wants her there. No one wants anyone to be owning this house. They want it bulldozed, so they're all giving her the cold shoulder. There's a lot of things that she uncovers within the house and a lot of mysteries surrounding our main character. It's interesting. I think a lot of people could really like this book. There were just a lot of it that didn't make sense logically to me, and not like a suspension of disbelief sort of thing. It's like situations where if this was the main character's motive, why on earth would she do this sort of thing? Like, just logically, it just doesn't make sense. And if you watch the live show discussion, you'll kind of see a little bit more about that. I don't want to spoil anything here, but yeah, 3 stars. We're gonna leave it at that. Next book I read is Air of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This was my first time actually completing this book. 2 years ago when I picked up this series, I got to page, I think actually only like 20 something before I got distracted and read something else. So I started reading the series again a couple months ago, and I finished this last month, and it was good. We got a lot of new point of views, a lot of new storylines to follow. The magic system is definitely being delved into a lot more, and we're learning a lot more about the world. So I'm excited to keep going. I think I rated this like a 4. I feel good about it. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. Bada bing, bada boom. Next, I read The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. This is about a Black musician who inherited this multi-million-dollar violin from his pop, and right before the biggest competition of his life, it gets stolen, and left behind is a ransom note for 5 million Bitcoin. The police, the FBI, the art crimes division of the whatever are all on the case trying to figure out where his violin has gone. Since it's so valuable and there was only so few of them in the world, his violin is very well known. And it's a story surrounding that situation. It's like a mystery thriller sort of thing. I was hooked from the very first page. It was a situation where I knew I wanted to read this month, but I didn't know what I wanted to read at the moment. So I was gonna like do a try a chapter thing, and I picked this book up first to try a chapter. And then I was like, okay, I want to read this. I don't want to try a different chapter. And ultimately, throughout the trajectory of the story, I definitely saw what was happening coming. Of course, with a couple subplot twists that were really fun and interesting, but overall, it wasn't super surprising to me, even though it was so well written. So like, I was never bored. I still had such a good time reading this. The audiobook is phenomenal. I ended up giving this one a 4 stars. Next, I read Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chapeko. This one was my Greenhouse Compendium pick for this last month in October. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a jar that I pull from every single month in my Spin the Bottle game, with all of it being suggestions from my patrons. So this book, as well as the secondary book club pick, both get their own exclusive reading vlogs for my Patreon, which this one was the Greenhouse Compendium, and the buddy read pick involved in the same reading vlog will be Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. We'll talk about that in a second, but just a little bit, because that vlog is still not out yet. Both of these are really chunky books, so that exclusive vlog is gonna come out for them in the first half of November. So I'll give you my rating here, but I definitely want to keep some of my thoughts to myself until that exclusive vlog comes out for them. Broadly, I ended up really liking this one. Very solid world building, characters are to die for, and I ended up giving this a 4 to 4.5. Likewise with Our Share of Night, I'm currently reading this. I'm only about 110 pages in. The last week or so, I've been really prepping for NaNoWriMo, so this has been my nighttime read book. I am obsessed with the writing. The idea surrounding the story, so interesting. I can't wait to continue. It's looking good so far, but it is a really long book, so anything could happen. Next, I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. In my fall weekend reading vlog, if you watched it, then you know that Caleb and I went to see our city's production of Frankenstein at our local theater, and it was so phenomenal, and if you would believe it, I have never actually even read Frankenstein, so I decided I wanted to read it before we went to see it, and I'm so glad I did, because it was really great. But there were certain parts in the book that felt very meandery, which I think is very, you know, classic for the time period that these books are written. So I think that some of it could have been omitted or changed or edited to make it a little bit more exciting, but the overall themes and atmosphere of the story were really so great and so special. So like maybe it's a 3.5-ish to a 4. I feel good about it. I mean, it's a classic book. I'm glad I read it, and the play was phenomenal. I said 8 books at the beginning of this video, and I definitely read more than that, so here are 2 more. The next book I read was Ring Shout by Joules Clark, and this book, it has been on my list for quite a while. This story follows a set of main characters who are basically like resistance fighters fighting against the demons who wear white hoods. The magical realism within this book is second to none. The descriptions of not only like the creatures, but also of just the battle scenes is truly incredible. The overarching themes of this story were written so well and in such a way that tied in magical realism that, like, yes, it's on the nose, but it was done so expertly. This book reminded me a lot of Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. I feel like Bitter is more of like a young adult to new adult version, while Ring Shout is more like horror and adult driven. This is another like if you like one, you like the other type vibe, but Ring Shout was devastating. It was so well written and it was really great. I think I ended with a 4 stars for it. And that is actually the last book that I read this month. Oh, no it isn't. I did read one other book. I read Minor Detail by Adiana Shibli. This author was supposed to accept an award for this story at the Frankfurt Book Fair, but the ceremony was actually canceled. And in support of this author, Libro FM actually made this book available for everyone to download for free for a full weekend, which is absolutely amazing. Another reason why you should sign up for Libro FM, because anytime you buy a credit or get an audiobook from them, you support your choice of a local indie bookstore, which I have a referral link for down below in the description. You should definitely try to do that in tandem or instead of Audible if possible. But Minor Detail as a story has 2 different timelines that we sort of follow. The first half of the book is set in 1949, which is 1 year after the war that the Palestinians have named as the Nakba, following the capture and rape of a young Palestinian woman who is then killed and buried. And then the latter half of the book is following a more present day woman who finds this story and becomes obsessed with like the minor details of it. And she kind of goes on a journey to see if she can uncover some truths or learn a little bit more about the situation. At times this book was extremely difficult to read, but at its foundation, at its core of how this book was written was absolutely amazing. I could see why it won an award. Like, I love when stories have repetitive themes. I think that it is a very clever and simple way to draw your attention to something, and the repetitive themes and elements within the story, from even the first part of the story to the second part of the story, it tied them together so beautifully, and it was amazing. I've thought about this book every single day since I listened to it. I re-listened to the second half of the story in particular twice, and it was definitely a 5-star read for me. But okay, that's definitely it. That's definitely the last book that I read last month. So thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. Let me know down below in the comments what book your favorite was of October, or your thoughts on any of the books that I read. If you don't know what to say, then leave the ghost emoji down below in the comments. And don't forget to check out Babbel. I'll have a pinned comment down below if you want to check it out and get 60% off of your subscription. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. I always appreciate your support. And of course, be kind to one another and happy reading. Bye.